Sorry, but Nancy found it.
Oh, the password?
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are live. Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer, thank you for that. And we will begin our board budget subcommittee meeting. Today is January 24th. This is for the board budget subcommittee meeting for the board meeting on the 26th. And with that, we'll turn it over to Trustee Prasad and Trustee Zhang to carry out the meeting.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Well, let's start with, are there any public comments for today's meeting?
I have not received any public comments for tonight's meeting.
Okay, and obviously there's nobody on the call now. So we'll keep moving. I think they have 10 minutes to have public comments. So we'll take that as people, if anybody arrives. Then Trustee Zhang, last time you didn't have audio, so you want to run the meeting today?
Well, I mean, okay, I can give it a shot.
Right there.
So I don't remember last time. Do we need to do roll call? We don't have to, right? Oh, yeah, we do. Associate Superintendent.
We just need to sign in on the notes. If you could just write your name so that we see who was on the call. There we go. Mr. Kamek has already signed in. Mr. Vivek is there. Mr. Pasquale. And there we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get right into the call of the meetings. So let's look at the first item is 11.1 and 11.2. Those are typical every month. Is there anything special? Okay.
I did not see anything special. I think actually one of the amounts is a little bit smaller because we don't have as many Fund 21 expenditures, which is our facilities fund.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I see that 11.1 is smaller, but 11.2 usually this is around 14, and this one is 15 million, slightly higher. The payroll warranty, but that's still within the variation.
Yes, so that's a 10.2 on my agenda. Maybe the one that the public might be looking at.
Oh.
Yes, I think that's still within the normal scope.
All right. So 11.3, which is the agenda, which is the calendar. I really like that. Thank you, Associate Superintendent Nancy Pfeiffer, for that. Let's move to, so now my number may be off. Now mine is looking at 11.4. Authorize staff to enter into agreement with the Millennium Consulting Associate. That's 11.4.
So it's 10.4. The number might be just one off. Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer, you want to speak to that item?
Yes. Let me make sure that I'm. Yes, I would like to speak to that item. The district is in the process of finalizing the project at Rick's Early Learning Center, and one of the issues that we have is that the current electrician is having a hard time concluding or completing their original assignment, and so there are still things that need to be done. One of them is a request that the district has made that pertains to the installation of the TVs. And the other has to do with a particular a particular lighting issue that we have that needs to be resolved. So this item is to ask for authorization to enter into agreement with General Lighting Services so that we can continue to move this project forward and bring it to completion.
Okay, I think the number is off, so I have to go back. That one is on my printed out is 11.6.
The item on the agenda is 10.6. It's $98,750.
Correct. Okay, so I think I have to go look from the current, the most updated one. Okay. So speaking of this one, so is this one besides this lighting service, are we going to finish?
That's the goal.
Last time we said, okay, there's no more project. Now there is this coming up.
And the preschool, the Early Learning Center for RICS, has been has the conclusion or the completion date has been moved in a couple of occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the major holdups in completing this project is these add-ons, this additional work that needs to be added. And unfortunately, the existing electrician is not able to take on this additional work. And if we rather not, because then it's going to delay the project even further. So we need to bring in an additional electrician to take care of the additional tasks that need to be done to get this project to completion.
Okay, so based on this, what it would be the due date? What would be our projected completion date?
So the district will complete the project by the end of February, early March. The move date for the classrooms will not be until spring break.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now, I want to go back to the Millennium Consulting Associates to conduct what's called hazmat survey on roofs. Can you help me to see which items I'm pulling out?
It's item 10.5.
Okay, so we're one off. Okay.
And this is for us to amend the agreement with Millennium Consultants,
Mm-hmm.
and that is for them to provide us with this particular assessment, so that as we move forward with these particular projects, that we have the necessary information about any abatement that needs to be done. The important thing about this is for us to be able to include this cost in the modernization project for this particular school.
Is this kind of service is being done to every modernization? Because this is in the beginning phase. There is 5 schools. I'm okay with the amount, and this is just the beginning of the planning phase. The total budget for these 5 schools are over 25 million. You know, we are
Correct.
looking at all these elementary schools.
This is a preliminary assessment. Once they identify if there are contaminants
Mm-hmm.
on the roofs, then there's a step 2 and a step 3 process. Step 2 is to develop the scope of work. And when that occurs, we will be coming back to the board to ask for authorization to enter into agreement for the development of the scope. And then once the scope is developed, then we want to turn it over to the general contractor so that they can take care of the abatement based on the scope of work that's required.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's, I don't have any questions on this. So then 11.6, which is again, it's agreement with Millennium Consulting Associate to provide construction phase monitoring service for the modernization project at Kennedy High. So, question about this Millennium Consulting Associates is the same company as the previous item, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, are they going to monitor the complete construction phase?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason why we can't come to you with a proposal um, that includes the monitoring, that includes the scope of work development, is because we don't need those services unless there's asbestos or any contaminants that are found in the roofs. So the first step is always to do the assessment, and what we have in the previous item was to do the assessment. When the assessment is done and once the scope of work is developed, then somebody has to monitor that the general contractor is disposing of and is doing what needs to be done to get rid of the contaminants in an appropriate way. And there's documentation that needs to be signed. There's so many rules and regulations about disposing of any materials that are hazmat materials that you have to have a company that is certified to be able to do this type of work. So, yes, this is something we need to have done.
Okay, okay. Thank you for explaining that. Because I'm thinking, looking at a monitoring service, provide service. I was thinking about we try to hire internal people to monitor those construction
Project.
phase, which is different than this.
Yes.
This is okay.
Yes. What we're looking at is construction managers, and those are basically looking at the construction project as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
This particular group is focused on
The
this
hazard.
hazmat materials, yes, and the disposal of such materials. It's a specialized field, and we don't hire in-house staff to do that. We need these consultants.
Absolutely. So, do we have people to be assigned to those construction management project?
We are going through the process with the descriptions, the job descriptions. They've been provided to our human resources department. They will be putting them through the commission for the district. That process, having them review, establishing the placements on the salary schedule. Once that process is completed, then we bring them to the board for approval, and then we go through the process of hiring the staff.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, my dog. Let's see what else. So now we move to 11 point. We talk about 11.7, which is the lighting service, and then move to the consent calendar. So no question on the approve certificated personnel action. Approve, that's 12.1. 12.2, approve classified personnel action. And then 12.3 is approve athlete coaches. So those are, oh yeah.
Yes, those are generally all standard.
Okay. Let's see what else. And 12.5, this MOU with FATA, and is also approved. We only need at preschool and adult school. So
Yes, we already had an agreement with FUTA to move into remote instruction if the health department mandated that we do that. However, that agreement did not incorporate the adult school or our state preschool. So this MOU addresses those two needs.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move to regular agenda items. The 15.3 budget update, and that is a very shall we just leave this to the regular meeting, which is prepared by assistant principal Salinas? Oh no, actually this is prepared by Mrs. Pfeiffer.
Yes.
So shall we talk about here, or it's quite lengthy?
Yeah, it's a comprehensive presentation of the governor's budget proposal, and we'll be reviewing that in detail in Wednesday night's meeting. I would say as a quick overview, the governor's proposed budget is built on an increased revenue at the state level. It provides for an increased projected COLA for the out years above what we anticipated. And so we'll be watching closely to see what develops at the state level between now and May, when we get a better idea of what that will be. But it's important to remember that the state budget actually won't be adopted until June. This is the first preview of the governor's plan for expenditures for the next year.
Well, thank you for the summary. And one thing I look at this presentation, they talk about covered food. So are we in the process of looking at an option for better food? Because the contract is need to be renewed by a certain time.
Yes, the final details of the request for proposals will be finalized tomorrow.
Oh,
We are posting the RFP next Friday. It will be posted for 2 weeks in the newspaper as required. We will have a date for questions from of anybody that's interested in providing those services. We will respond to those questions. We will include an interview process, a review process, and then we will bring a recommendation to the board. Our goal is to bring it, if I'm not mistaken, to the board meeting, the first board meeting in March. So it almost takes 2 months to go through an RFP process in our district. So yes, we're working on that.
oh, that's wonderful. So when you say, what is the RFP process?
Request for proposals.
Oh, request for proposal.
From companies. And so we give them the scope of work. We ask them for information. We review the information they provide, and then we make an informed decision based on their proposed cost and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you for that. So that would also would give our community enough time to discuss and debate for, finalize the choice, let's say, if we're going to choose a different vendor to provide the cafeteria food.
Yes, bringing that over multiple meetings would definitely give the community an opportunity to provide input.
Okay. All right.
Anything we do there would be for the next school year, right? Not for this school year.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay, so Trustee Prasad, any questions?
Well, are we done with all the agenda items? What agenda item are we on?
We're at 15.3 budget update.
Okay. So on the budget update, I didn't quite hear the full discussion here. But, are we providing update based on the latest governor's the messaging that we are getting now?
Yes, this is a summary of the governor's January budget proposal and what's included in his proposal. And then as we were discussing the fact that we'll have to monitor those developments over the coming months and see what comes to fruition until the governor publishes the May revise, which is generally pretty close to what we get in the approved June budget. As a reminder, one of the idiosyncrasies of public school finance and the rules that we operate under, school districts have to approve their budget before the end of June, which also requires in the guidelines a 2 board meeting process. So we will present our budget at the first board meeting in June and bring it back for approval at the second board meeting. And we will be building that budget and presenting it likely prior to the state's actual final budget agreement. And so that is not unique to Fremont. That's the position that all school districts are in. And then we have a process where if the state budget changes significantly after adoption, we can adjust ours accordingly.
Okay. So
Okay.
now, based on, okay, so I don't have any more questions on the budget update. Thanks.
Okay, so then let's move on to
So one quick
15.6.
comment, I see there's another person with the phone number on the call.
All right.
Was that somebody that may have joined for public comment by any chance?
So if this person wants to speak up, how can he do it? He can raise a hand, right?
Yes.
Okay, maybe he just want to listen in. So then let's move to 15.6. This is to approve a higher threshold for the superintendent to prove any items under certain budget numbers. Before it is this nothing to do with the finance, but before
So
it's held in, yes, please go ahead.
What this has to do with is the authority of the superintendent or the associate superintendent to sign and approve contracts. So currently in Fremont Unified, that authority cannot exceed $10,000. And so what we've done is looked at the last time that policy was approved, taken a look at the increases over time that would be statistically appropriate, and we're proposing an increased amount. For context, many school districts, not all, but many school districts have a $50,000 limit. That was the limit in my last district, even though our operating budget was much smaller than Fremont Unified's. And so this is just a threshold amount that is set under board policy for the size of a contract that the superintendent can approve on their own. And as you can imagine, with the costs of goods and services, there's often times where we may need to approve a contract that does exceed $10,000, and it can be more timely if we're able to do that and move forward without then waiting for the pending board approval.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so one question. So going from 10,000 to 25,000, what type of contracts would you be able to? I mean, is this still meaningful, or is this still going to have the same problem?
I think it will be helpful, but I think that a higher number would be more helpful. I think when you take a look at most districts utilizing a $50,000 threshold, that seems to be an adequate benchmark, but we want to make sure that we're providing a measuring stick that's appropriate and comfortable for our board. Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer, in the district that you were in previously, do you recall the threshold that was established there?
In my 2 previous districts, one was $50,000, the other was $30,000. Right now, what we're asking for is for the increase is really the increase in the cost of doing business. And so there's been inflation. The inflation that has taken place since this number was established many, many years ago is over 150%. So our ask is to at least bring it to to the level of inflation that we're in now. $50,000 would be, of course, particularly applies to construction projects. If we have a project, somebody that we need to have them come in, take care of something that's $20,000, we can't have them come in and take care of an electrical problem or some quick unforeseen condition. We have to wait. We have to agendize it. We have to bring it to the board. The board has to approve it before we can tell the contractor to move forward. So that delays the project, delays the contractor. Some of these are unforeseen conditions. So having a larger threshold would be extremely helpful so that we can continue to move these projects forward.
Now, let's say we make the threshold be 50,000, then do the contracts that are approved come to the board for information anyway, or how will we see those?
The contracts all come to the board for approval through the PO approval process.
Yeah, so it's all built into that one.
Correct.
Okay. So, because I mean, to me, I don't know how much 25,000 buys nowadays, right?
Not
So
much.
just going through the motions of making a change to some odd kind of number, right? So 25,360 seems like we are going for the bottom end of the range. So I mean, we should. My suggestion would be to put in a couple of different options and then let the board deliberate and decide. And you should create a case for why 50,000 would be better than 25,000 based on maybe the past few contracts where you had trouble waiting for the whole process to pan out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But is that because of this we had a certain scenario that the PO was approved before present to the board meeting anyway, right? Because there is several cases, we cannot wait to pay for the contractor. So we end up
The items that we've been bringing to the board were within the contracted amount. So these were change orders to the general contractor. So the ones that you've seen recently, let's say that it's for Lathrop Construction. Within their contract, there was a dollar amount for unforeseen conditions, a contingency. So what we've been bringing to the board is a list of all of these changes that took place within that contingency. There was no contract change. The contractor didn't get extra money. We didn't change contractors. So that's one practice. What we have today with the electrical contractor that we want to bring in is that this is outside of the general contractor. This is not a change order to the general contractor. The general contractor has a subcontractor that's been doing all the electrical work that was hired to do the electrical work. They've been impacted by COVID. Their staff has been impacted by COVID. So the initial scope of work under the general contractor has not been completed and has caused some of the delays. We don't want to add this additional scope to that subcontractor, because if they can't get the work that they've been assigned to do now, then we don't want to add any more. So what we're bringing to you now, so I can't just call another electrician based on the restrictions that we have about the $10,000 and say, electrician B, please come over and take care of these other items for us without your consent and approval. If it exceeds the $10,000, that's where the delay occurs. So a lot of times they're looking at a change order for the contractor, right? But a change order for the contractor is an increase of sometimes 10% just for profit on the contractor, just for adding something to the existing contractor. So having the ability for us to be able to hire a contractor to do work outside of the general contractor and continue to keep things moving would be very beneficial. Very, very beneficial.
Yeah, I would also like to hear, like, what about the delay? The delay would cost us money as well.
And that's the issue, yes.
Okay, so then So shall we move on? So at least we know the background of this one. But definitely, I mean, this is time to change the threshold. Let's see what else. 15.7. Ratify the change order within agreement with Roden Builders for district and developer contingency expenditure. Phase 1, 2, 3.
So what we're referring to is a condition in which there's a contingency. The general contractor has a contingency, the district has a contingency. These changes are within the contingency amount. These changes do not increase the contract amount, but we're bringing them so that the board is aware of the changes that have taken place and where we stand with the contingencies that have been set aside for this particular project.
I have a question about this contingency. So is that some project have a developer's contingency and the district contingency, and some I don't see. I just only see one contingency category. So
It
how does
depends.
the structure work?
It depends on the type of deliverable, the method for delivery of the project that we are contracted with the general contractor. So if the general contractor is doing a lease back, then the contingencies are different. You'll find a contingency for the developer and a contingency for the district. If it's not a lease back, it's usually just one contingency, and that usually is owned by the district. So the developer can't just spend it before the district says you can. The same thing happens here, but there's two contingencies. We started with the same amount of contingency in this particular project for phase 1 and 2. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, phases 1, 2, and 3, the contingency that we started with was $5 million, $2.5 million on the developer side, and $2.5 million on the district side. Thus far, we've only spent the amount proposed to be spent is $132,000, leaving us still with the remaining of $4.9 million in contingencies.
Yeah. So the phase 3, let's see. The phase 3 does not specify which contingency it belongs.
At the bottom of the item, it shows that the developer contingency for phase 3 is $2.5 million, and the district contingency is also $2.5 million.
Okay, I see that.
For a total of $5 million. And then the bottom one combines all three phases.
Got it.
1, 2, and 3.
Okay. So help me to understand which is better. If we only have one category of contingency versus lease back, and is that the old practice? And going forward, we're going to use another one category of contingency. What's the pros and cons?
Well, the method of delivery really depends on the district's needs. Some say that a lease back is a faster and more efficient way of delivering a construction project. You have more flexibility in the selection of the contractor. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
And so there's certain benefits to the different delivery methods. Unfortunately, in this particular case, these schools have already been contracted out. And therefore, we're seeing the methods that have already been established. Moving forward, most of the projects that we have are modernization projects. They're not tear down and rebuilt like we've had some of these projects. So we'll consider the pros and cons of the different delivery methods and bring a recommendation to the board of how we want to proceed.
Okay. Thank you for that. So this one, Centerville. So when is Centerville is going to complete?
There's still an additional, I mean, our goal is to have it ready for students to move, the sixth graders to move in, not this academic year that's coming, but the academic year after that.
You mean next year? Next year fall?
Not August, not the fall of 22, but the fall of 23.
Okay.
All of our middle schools, the middle school conversions, are going to be ready in that period of time.
Do we have any management companies supervise the budget? When we talk about the project management.
So the construction management firms that have been established we do have several construction management firms that are working on these projects. The Hopkins project, the Centerville project, the Thornton project, all of those middle school conversion projects have a construction management firm in place.
Okay, so far good. There's no issues.
I haven't been able to analyze the deliverables from, but so far there hasn't been any issues.
Okay. 24. So let's move on to 15.8.
And that's a similar case as the one that we just looked at with Rodan Builders. This is now with the contractor, Lathrop Construction, with the modernization project at Hopkins. The district has a contingency. So you notice that there isn't two contingencies. This is not a lease back. This is a construction project. So the contingency is $4.8 million. The amount that we're looking at spending within that contingency is approximately $1 million. The district has still a contingency of $3.9 million.
Right. So we talk about this Hopkins Middle School, and with the delayed work, when is the new date of completion? Is that going to be next year fall, the Hopkins?
I believe that we have a two-step process where the school will, or the students that are at Lila Brinkhurst will return to Hopkins.
In
The
the
middle
fall?
school the sixth grade students, however, will not be joining them until the year after that. Is that yes? Until the year after that. But the seventh and eighth graders are going back to Hopkins starting the fall of next year,
Okay. All right.
in August of 22. The sixth graders will start in August of 23.
Right. Yes.
So I was noticing that the big ticket items in this are all related to dry rot again. And then there's a demolition and re-roof for to some building. Is that also related to dry rot?
Unfortunately, prior to our time, there was a decision made of modernizing instead of tear down and rebuild, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you venture into doing a modernization versus, so that project has modernization and also has new construction or adding buildings. But the modernization component, these are schools that are over 50 years old, and you are going to find all of those components. And those components will always, it's very difficult to anticipate what the cost would be. So at one point, there was an evaluation of tearing down and rebuilding versus modernizing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to say with that is that there had to been an assumption, and that's why you see that very large contingency of over $4 million, that we were going to find things that we were going to need to repair. So I believe there was definitely anticipation that was going to occur.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Because usually when you only when you open something up, you wouldn't know how much damage it is and what to do with it. Well then, that's it.
Yeah, that was the last item.
I think that's the end of the financing items.
Do we want to see if the additional guest on our call had any public comment before we close out the meeting?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Caller, do you have any questions for any of the committee members that you would like to ask? Caller on phone number 1510 star 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 star. Last two digits are 86. Would you like to unmute yourself? Identify yourself?
Maybe not.
I don't see a response. I don't hear a response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, then we can go ahead and close out the meeting.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, staff. Thank you to our trustees. And we will close out our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.